Welcome back to our YouTube channel. Today we'll be learning how to make this dolman dress with flounce and yoke. It's a dolman dress because there is a sleeve extension cut together with the main bodies. So this is the yoke cut with velvet fabric, the flounce cut with doll face and lace, and it has a flare sleeve and a three-quarter sleeve. So if this is what you want to learn, kindly stay tuned and watch till the end of this tutorial to enjoy this video. Welcome back to our YouTube channel. Today we'll be learning how to make a dolman bustier dress. A shoulder that dolman bustier. The dolman dress is a dress that has an extension an extension on the shoulder, which means some part of the sleeve, just a little part of the sleeve, will be cut together with the main bodies. It won't have any joining around the armhole area. It will just be drafted together and cut together with the main bodies. So I have my shoulder dart pattern ready, as we can see, and I have a tutorial on how to draft this already on the channel. So now I'll just get right into the tutorial. So what I need to do now is to add a fresh pattern to my side front. This is the side front. I labeled it. So I'm going to add a fresh pattern on the armhole area so that I'll be able to extend my shoulder to give me that cap sleeve that I want. Okay, so I'll be holding this new pattern with the masking tape. Okay, so now that I've held this with the masking tape, I'm just going to extend my shoulder line like this. So after extending my shoulder line, you need to determine how long you want this sleeve to be by measuring it on your client. Okay, there are several ways you can measure it. You can actually measure just the sleeve part. If you want it to be like 3 inches extension, 4 or 5 inches, you measure that, or you just take the measurement from the center back of your client up to where you want the sleeve to stop. So either way you want to do it is fine, but for me, I'm just going to give just 4 inches extension here. I'm doing this much because I just want to be on the safe side, so that by the time I'm through with this, even if it's excess, I will be able to trim it off. It's better for it to be more than for it to be less. Okay, and I'm going to connect this to my armhole. So this is my armhole line. Now I'm going to be redrawing my armhole. Remember, this is my actual armhole measurement. So I'll redraw this to meet up with my normal armhole, and this pattern already has enough allowance, so I'm not going to be adding any allowance on the side again. I just need to redraw my armhole. This is my actual armhole line. Okay, and this is the new armhole that I'm working with for my new sleeve extension that I made. And remember, I said that I just need around 3 or 2.5 inches, but I made this 4 inches because it's better to be excess than for it to have shortage, so that by the time I'm through, I can easily cut off the excess that I have. So that is the only modification that I'm making here, and I'll be repeating what I did here on the back panel also. Then I'll take this to my fabric and then cut on the fabric. So this dress is packed, actually is loaded. It's not just going to be a dolman pattern, it's also going to be having a yoke. Okay, so this dress is going to have a yoke. A yoke is what you join to your buster, like an extension. We'll understand it as we go on in the. So just like I did for the front, I'm extending the shoulder for the back also, and then I'm going to take 4 inches for my dolman sleeve, 4 inches, and then I'm going to connect this to my note that I'm connecting it to the allowance part of my dress. Remember, this is the actual measurement, this is the allowance that I had in front. It will be easy for me. and I'm going to cut this off. So the patterns are ready now. So like I said, this is going to be having a yoke. There are several ways you can draft this yoke. You can actually try to close up this dart like this using a masking tape. So once you close the dart, you decide on how deep you want your yoke to be. For example, this is going to be a very deep yoke, so I'll be taking 10 or 10.5 inches. Let's say I'm taking 10 inches, and then I'm going to connect to this side where I want it to be on this side. So I just be measuring like the middle of my armhole. This is 4, this is 9 inches, so divided by 2 is going to give me 4.5, and then I can use my curved ruler to connect this together. Remember, you must have held this so that it won't be shaking like it is doing now. But I won't be doing this. I'll be using another method, but I just want us to see several ways we can actually achieve this. So now we have our yoke like this. You just need to cut this place off, and then you cut it on another fabric. Okay, that is one method. Another method we can use, which I'm going to be using, I'll be cutting this on my lining first because I don't have. Okay, so like I was saying, another way of cutting your flounce out is by cutting your fabric, then you sew them together. So after sewing it together, they can now cut off your flounce. So it's either you do that or you do the method of cutting it directly on your pattern. I'm not going to be using pattern because I think I already have something like that on the channel. I have a yoke, I think I have a yoke design already that I cut directly on the pattern. So I'm just trying to show us another method of doing this. So that's why I'm cutting this on my fabric, and this is the lining part of my fabric because I'm using just 2.5 yards of lace. I don't have enough, so that's why I can't cut my lace yet. I'm cutting this on the lining so that by the time I sew it on the lining and I cut out the yoke part, I'll be able to use this pattern. This is also this line is going to be serving as a pattern for me to cut it on my lace. Okay, so that I will not be wasting too much of my lace fabric. So what I'm going to do now is just to go to the sewing machine now and start to join this together. I'm going to sew this together like this, and then I'm going to sew the back bodies together also. Then after sewing them together, I'll bring them back to cut out my desired yoke. Okay, so now I've sewn it together and I have one piece. This is my front panel, so I just need to take this together now and then cut out my yoke. So I'm just trying to make sure that I have equal, everything is equal at every point. So like I said, I'll be using 10 inches for my yoke. It's a very deep yoke, and I'll be replacing it with a velvet fabric, so it's safe. It's not like it's going to expose anything. So if you are working with net, you may want to be very careful. I'll be using velvet for my yoke, so that's why I can go as low as I want because velvet is not transparent. It's not going to be exposing anything. And also on the armhole area, just like I did, I'm going to measure 4.5 inches, and then using my curved ruler or freehand, I'm going to draw like a sweetheart curve there. So if you have a curved ruler, you can use that, and if you can use your freehand too, it's okay. So I'm spreading it. Remember, this is a bustier, so there's a bust cup around that place. It's making it pack, so you just try to spread it so that you know that everything is going around. Okay, so now that I have this is going to be the yoke part of my dress, and this is going to be the one I'm going to be cutting on lace fabric. So at any point you can reshape your armhole to fit the armhole measurement that you're working with, or you can do that after you might have cut off your excess, after you might have joined them together on this. And when I was talking about adding excess to your measurement. Remember, we sewed this together and I did not add allowance, so my actual measurement is supposed to be 8 inches and I added 4 inches. So after sewing it, you can see what I have just around 3 inches and quarter. So if I did not use 4 inches, it means I'll be having shortage on my measurement, so we should always take note of that. Okay, so now I'm going to cut out this yoke. Okay, so I'll be cutting this on my velvet, and this is going to be my main bodice, this, and then I will sew it back. But before I sew it back, this dress also has like flounce around this place, so we need to cut out that flounce also. So like I said, it's a loaded tutorial. You have a lot of things to learn from this. So it also has flounce, and the back bodies also have yoke. So I'm going to be cutting out the yoke for the back bodies also, and I'll be using the same 10 inches that I use for the front, also for my back. But in the case of the back, remember there is a zipper allowance, so I'm taking my 1 inch zipper allowance straight before I connect my curve. And it's not going to be a sweetheart curve, it will be like a U. Okay, so using my ruler, I'm just going to connect this together, and then I cut it off and I'll replace it with my velvet fabric. But before I cut, I'm trying to make sure that everything aligns together. So like I said, remember I said this line is going to serve as my pattern, so I need to carefully loosen this out so that I can place it on my lace to cut out my main fabric before I can join it out. So this is also like a pattern. So now the next thing for me is to cut out my velvet on my yoke, then cut out the flounce. Then I'm going to add like interface, stay on the flounce or paper stay, whatever you have, just to make it stronger, make it float a bit, so that it won't be just going down like that. So that's the next thing we are doing. Okay, so like I was saying, I've placed my pattern, the yoke, to cut out my velvet. This is the back panel. Remember, the back panel is going to be 2 because of the slashing for the zip. So I just placed the pattern on it to cut it, and this is the front. Okay, so you can see this is the pattern that we cut out from the upper part, remember. And I went ahead to cut my neckline. So for this, the neckline is not too wide, so I used a width of 3 inches and depth of 1 inch for my back. And for my front, I've cut the front also, and for the front I used a width of 3 inches and a depth of 3 inches. So the back is higher than the front neckline is deeper. So my yoke is set, and I went ahead to use that pattern for the down part to cut out my lace and other fabrics that are in it. So I've added soft wadding to this to pad it. So the next thing for me now is to start to sew it, but before that, remember I said it's going to have a flounce. So I've cut out my flounce also, like I said, and I ironed interface to it because I want it to be a bit strong so that I can stand out on its own. And to cut this flare is very simple. So what you just need to do is to fold your fabric into 4 like this. Because this is your fabric, you fold into 2, and then you later fold into 4. So after folding into 2 and 4, you measure your radius. For me, I'm using 2 inches for my radius, and if you watch my video on flange, you understand this better. The shorter your radius, the more wavy your flounce is going to be. So you can use as small as 1.5 inch if you have enough fabric. But for this tutorial, I'm using 2 inches for the radius of my flounce, and I'm going to measure the 2 inches round and then connect it. Then after this, I'll decide how long I want my flounce to this. For this, I use 3 inches length, so that by the time I turn it, I'll have around 2.5 inches left for me. So you just take your 3 inches round like this, measure your 3 inches round, connect it, and then you cut it out. So this is not up to 3 inches. Let me just work with what we have here. Okay, so these are around 2, so let's just take 2 inches round and then we cut it up. I'm sure we get this because I've been doing something similar. So you just cut as many as you need. You can measure the area that you're going to be needing the flounce for to know the quantity that you will need. So once you cut out your flounce like this, you slash it open on one side and you cut as many as possible. You can see how wavy this is turning out. As many as possible so that I can join them together. See where I joined mine. Okay, I'm trying to look for the, okay, you can see the joinings. So you join them together to have something long enough for you to work with. And then I went ahead to cut it on my lace also, and then I turned it with the same stuff so that I'll have it neatly finished here. And then you take it to the ironing table and you give it a good press. So what is left for us now is just to start arranging this, and then we'll start to sew them together. So this is my center front. This is my, I'll match my center front to my side fronts and then sew them together. Okay, so I've arranged it. This is my center front and my side front, so I'm going to sew them together. Do the same for the back panel and also the lining. Okay, so I've joined them together. This is one of the back panels, this is the other one. Okay, and this is my front, and I've done the same for the lining also. So now the next thing I'm going to do now is to introduce my flounce. Okay, I'll look at the midpoint of my flounce, and then I'm going to sew it like this on top, following my neckline shape. I'm going to sew my flounce like this. So after sewing my flounce, that is when I'll bring in my yoke. I'll bring in my yoke and then sew it to it. So my flounce will be in between the main body and the yoke. So I'll do the same for the back also. I'll sew my flounce to the back and then sew my yoke like that. Okay, so I've sewn the flounce on it like this. So this is the back. This excess is what I want to sew round the sleeve. That's why I'm leaving it like that. So this is what it looks like when you sew it on the flounce, and this is the second part of the back bodies, and this is the front. Okay, so you can see what this is looking like. This is the front. So now the next thing is for us to introduce our yoke. So I'm just going to place the midpoint of the yoke against the midpoint of the main bodies, and then I'm going to sew it like this up to where the body stops, and then on the other side I'm going to sew it also. So after sewing it, I'm going to bring in my lining, because remember we cannot leave it like this. So if I sew it like this, this right side facing right side, so I'm going to bring in the lining also after sewing the yoke like this, and then sew so that I'll be able to turn it over to conceal all these rough edges. So I'm going to do that now and bring it back to show us. Okay, so I've sewn in my flounce and my velvet, so as you can see, and I sewed my lining on it just to turn it neatly like this. So I just need to take it to the ironing table and give it a good press. As you can see, it's neatly finished, and I did the same for the other side too. So I just want to show us what I'm doing. So now I've joined my main bodies to my velvet. Okay, you can see I've sewn it in. Now to turn it with lining, I just need to bring in my lining. Remember, it's supposed to cover it like this. So what you just need to do is flip this over like this, match them together, and then you sew it round so that you can use it to cover up the rough edges. I hope you understand this. And I'm working with velvet. It's very stretchy, so you have to be very careful when you are sewing it. If you want to work with velvet, you don't need to drag it. You cannot drag it so that it won't lose its form. So it has been turned neatly now. You can see how it is. So you just need to notch it and also give it a good press. There is no power presently, so I'm just working. So I'm going, but it's always good to iron. I always say that it is very, very good to iron. You enjoy it if you iron. So now I'm going to bring in the skirt. I've already cut the skirt part of it, and I'm going to take my darts now and then join them together. This is the front, and these are the two pieces for the back. So after joining it together, I'm just going to sew them together on the sides and on the shoulder, and our dress is ready. So okay, I've joined this on the shoulder, the front and back together, and I fixed zipper on the back bodies. Remember I said you need to iron it. Then I wanted to shape it on the side using the allowance that I left. So I'm going to turn it out now. So this is what it looks like after turning it out. You can see. So the excess flange that I have here, I'm going to take it around my armhole like this. So remember I stopped. I'm just going to continue sewing it like this round my armhole to meet the back. I'll do the same for the other side, round like that. And I'm going to add a flare sleeve to this. So I already cut out the flare sleeve. As you can see, I measured round my armhole to get my radius for my flare sleeve. So this is my armhole. So I measured round this and I divided that by 6.28 to get the radius for my sleeve. And just like I cut the flounce, I measured my radius and then the length of my sleeve. So I went ahead to turn it out with lining. So I'm going to be sewing this round the armhole. After I have attached this excess flounce, I'll also sew this round my armhole, and I'm also planning to introduce a normal basic 3/4 sleeve if I have enough lace fabric. So that is about it, and our dress is ready. But before we go, this also has a small bishop collar. So remember the neckline is not too deep because it's like a turtleneck. So I'll be cutting out the bishop collar and then adding to the neckline also. Okay, so this is our completed dress. You can see, like I said, I added a bishop collar on it, and you can see our flounce, how beautiful it is. And this is the yoke with the extended dolman sleeve. You can see that we have cut the sleeve together up to the bicep point before we added our flounce. Our flounce was continuing from the main bodies all the way to the sleeve, and I added an extra flare and also a 3/4 sleeve. So it is very easy to make, and it's so beautiful. You can give this a try and let's see the challenge you may come up with. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next one. So kindly subscribe to our channel if you haven't, so that I get notified anytime we upload new amazing videos. Thanks for watching. Bye.